Okay, it's 4 o'clock. We might as well get started. Welcome to this session entitled Pickett's Charge Revisited, Flanking Rules from the Great Campaign. It's all about what if General Pickett would have understood the flanking rules better, would he really took that frontal assault as opposed to trying to go around and get a +4 flank attack. So probably the most complicated area in the Great Campaign system. It started out relatively simple until they realized because of various terrain they needed to change it, and it all makes sense when you understand it all, but sometimes it's probably the most challenging area for people that haven't played the system very well for very long. And so we have two excellent presenters here for you. We've got Bruno Passacantando, who's been playing the system for 26 years. He's an accountant up in Marlborough, Connecticut. He's a 6-time World Board Game Championship champion at this particular game. He's play tested a lot of the games. He's proofread a lot of the rules. And so I think he'll give you a great explanation of these rules. We also have Clyde Longus from down in the Virginia Beach area, North Carolina. He's a longtime player. He won the Winter Offensive short scenario tournament last year. I know he won that. And Clyde's always been great help to every event that I've run, always there to be able to assist in any way I need him to running the introductory scenarios or introductory campaign, etc. So I think you've got two great people to help you understand these rules. Just to kind of give you an idea what we have coming up later in the convention. After you get done with that, there's actually a multiplayer game going on. Atlanta's Ours multiplayer game. They're playing like a medium link scenario. They're still looking for players for that. So if you want to jump on with them at any time and then jump off, that's be fine. We've got the Long Roads to Gettysburg campaign game. And then we have a fourth round of the short scenarios occurring at pretty much at 1600? It was 6 o'clock tonight would be the fourth round of scenarios. Even if you haven't played in previous scenario, if you want to jump in and play a round of a short scenario, you're welcome to do that. And then later tonight, we have our first designer session comparing the modules with Chris Withers, Ed Beach, and Joe Balkowski. All three of the designers of the system are going to be here and talk about all the modules in the system and how they differ and why they differ from one another. But that's later tonight. Now, without further ado, I will turn it over to Clyde and Bruno to talk to you all about the GCACW flanking rules and strategies.
Gentlemen, thank you, Ken.
No problem.
Thanks, Ken. If you can
If everyone can mute their microphone, if you're not presenting or asking questions, appreciate it. Okay. That's great.
There we go. I am going to be terrible about looking at text and versus voice. If you have questions, hold them till the break of that particular example, if you will, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. The best way to do that is when you feel that there's a break from that example, just hop on and ask. I'm going to do my best not to botch this, but if I do, hopefully somebody will back me up and we'll get it straight. Where we're going to start is, if you find Gettysburg in Adams County, we're just going to move to the left. We're going to start on top of Long Street. Okay, so you can have flank attacks on the march, on an assault, and on a grand assault. So flank attacks are something that's important. It can get you some bonus points when you're attacking. So it's the attacker who's going to decide how the flank works out. So in this example, this first example with Long Street, we're going to notice that hex is covered, right? And a hex is covered is where we have like a zone of control, and the 6 hexes around Doubleday, right? The 6 hexes around Doubleday. So we're going to learn a term called hexes covered. All right. Another term I want to quickly go over is hexes that we're going to back out. Say if Robinson was here, we're going to count this hex as covered, but we're going to back him out for final flanking. Okay. So how does flank works? When you, for example, if this is going to be on the march, you're going to try to figure up your odds. You're going to find out from Doubleday to the zone of control of the attacker. Okay. We'll go over some caveats. Like to the left of this, there's going to be some mountains. There's some swamp issues. Limited zone of controls. We'll have a limited zone of control one a little bit south of this one. And as you know, limited zone of control, you're going to have a road, okay, or a ford or a ferry or something of that nature. So let's start with this example. This first example, we see that all 6 hexes of Doubleday are covered. All right, this is the best flanking position that you can be in. All right, so if you look at the chart, you'll see that this is a +4 flank. It's +4 because all 6 hexes are covered. All right. I think Bruno are going to run this. We're going to go shoot through a few examples, and then Bruno will hop in and show you some tactics related to those situations, and he may even draw extra counters to explain 1 or 2 more. So does anybody have any questions on this first example? All right, I'm going to move on to the next example, which is just to the right of this. Now, notice that Pickett in this example is demoralized. If you have a demoralized counter, it does not count as far as the zone of control and hex is covered. Okay, so in this example, Reynolds wants to attack Hood. All right, so if we look at the hexes covered, we'll see that Reynolds has a zone of control here, right? He has a zone of control there. Wadsworth here. Now, this is something different that we haven't seen from the first one, is that Robinson can lean on here. So the final flanking on this one is going to be a +4.
Good.
All right.
So I think we should talk about the fact that you do the first calculation, number of covered hexes was 6. So you start the basic bonuses with 6 covered hexes is 4. And then you make adjustments down. So if Pickett had not been demoralized, maybe some of the people watching this aren't familiar with the all-in-one. So Pickett, and I think Clyde just removed, he had been demoralized. But if he is not demoralized, you start with 6 covered hexes because he's got 1 neighboring hex covered by one of his allies. That drops it down to +5 covered hexes, which becomes a +2. Now, because he was demoralized in a previous combat, a demoralized marker does not help reduce the flank bonus.
I think it brought him down to a +3, didn't he? If Pickett was there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If going back to the example that Pickett is good, right? If Pickett is in good order, then there are 6 hexes covered, right? And then we're going to back out Pickett. So you are right, Ken. That's going to be a +3. If we take away Robinson in this example, we notice that 3033 is not taken. If Pickett is in good order here, we'll see that they have 1, 2, 3, 4 hexes covered.
No, 5 hexes covered.
Five hexes covered. Excuse me. 5 hexes covered is going to be a +2. All right. But with Pickett being in good order, we're going to back that down by 1. Any questions on that?
Good.
Bruno, do you want to do the Longstreet law example for movement, or do you want me to move on?
We could break it up. Yeah, why don't I do that first example of some tactics. So going back to Longstreet, Doubleday, and Law, we're going to turn the clock back a bit to find out how the situation occurred. So let's say that Longstreet's forces were a couple of hex to the west. In this example, let's say he rolls a 4, Longstreet, the Rebs get a +2, so he has a total of 6 movement points, and he wants to impact or create that +4. So his first move would be, he's intending to attack with McLaws, the larger of the 2 divisions. So he wants to set up the attack, and he's going to take Law down to the south. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then Longstreet will take McLaws. 1, should take them both. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, and he's got 3 movement points left, so he can, on the move, have a normal attack. He's got, he needs 2 movement points for normal. He would need 4 for a prepared, but he'd get his +4 there. So the Rebs have 2 advantages. They win the initiative 58% of the time because they win ties. And they also obviously have a movement advantage. So let's step it back one more initiative. And let's say that prior to that, Doubleday is near Gettysburg. So keeping in mind the Reb advantages, let's say that Doubleday, let's move him back up north of Gettysburg a little bit. Let's say he rolls a 5. So if he started in 31-31, rather than moving to 27-33 and expose himself, the road net is quite extensive there. So he might be better off either doing 1 of 2 things. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then do a flanks refused, which would limit the bonus instead of +4 to a maximum of +2. So the downside to that is a straight attack. You're giving away a +1, but you're protecting against the +4 surround. So he can do that, or he can, rather than do that, is stop behind one of the creeks. Creek is a defensive value of 1 to the defender's side. The other thing to look for is artillery. So artillery advantage usually is to the Union's benefit. And in this case, he'd want to look to stop his movement in a clear space, everything else being equal. Okay, any questions on setting up the attack? Oh, let me go back one at a time. So with Longstreet, prior to his moves, let's say Doubleday was in that original hex. You can improve the attack that was made by moving Law to the north, and then Longstreet taking McLaws to the south. Take a look at, if an attack happens, what's the difference between McLaws and Longstreet being to the north versus the south? If he attacks from the current position and he creates or forces a withdrawal, so let's say he wins the battle by at least 2, then he's going to force a retreat either into 26-32 or 28-32. There's no road there. So in addition to the combat losses, Doubleday will also incur a retreat loss. So prior to, look for the best advantage, but just by switching the movement of those two units, you can, create additional losses by retreat. So be on the lookout for that. All right, we can move on to the next. Any questions on that before?
I just. Oh, Brian, go ahead, Brian.
Sure. You just sort of mentioned about the retreat routes being limited by the roads. So the availability to create a flank is not limited by roads going into those adjacent hexes, eh?
That's correct.
So McClaws still has a ZOC or a covering 2633, even though there's no road to that hex. Yeah.
Right. Roads have no impact at all on whether a flank is
Right.
extended into the other hexes.
Unless you get into situations where you have woods, and I'm sure you're going to talk about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was my next question.
I just have a question. I don't understand why the McClaws being on top or Law being on top and McClaws on the bottom with the retreat. Wouldn't it be affected both ways if you put McClaws on top and Law on the bottom? You still have to.
Yeah, good question. So let's say, as it was originally set up, you have Longstreet and McClaws attacking from the north, and if he wins by at least 2, that causes the defending unit to retreat. He can retreat to 2833 because there's a road. There's no retreat loss. That's the main difference.
But if you flip them, that road is still there.
Yeah, but it's the direction of the attack from where it's coming from.
Oh, okay.
So in that case, he's attacking from the south.
So you're attacking from McClaws up, going north.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's right. The retreat rules say that there are 2 charts. I mean, the primary chart handles the first 4 hexes of the retreat. And if you're looking at that, you have to go away from the attacking unit.
Wow.
That's the first order of business.
Yeah, I never thought of that. Wow, that's amazing. Okay, great.
Glad to help.
Yeah,
All right.
Yeah.
Using this, going back to this example, Bruno brought up an excellent point about flanks refused. Let me just touch on that. I don't want to spend all day on that, but it is important that we talk about this because it does directly affect the flanking. All right. So really quick, as Doubleday is marching, he can spend one movement point out of the zone of control of enemy units, and he can spend 1 movement point to add a flank refuse marker, and that's going to go on the bottom, right, of this hex. So if he was to make this move in the same hex, making the very same attack, right, this is going to cut the flank in half. All right, so we're going to go from a 4 to a 2. So you're decreasing the penalty of being attacked by using a flank refused. Now, I want to bring up one other situation here. If Longstreet calls for an assault, all right, because you are in a flank refused position, Longstreet on the assault here will pick up +1 on the flank because you are in a flank position. Okay. All right. Let's see, what else can I add? Let's add Reynolds to this hex. And for some reason, McClaws is almost in position to attack. Reynolds sees this and wants to attack Law. Reynolds can attack with 1 unit and still keep his flank refuse marker because 1 unit in that hex cannot do anything. It'll just stay in the flank refuse. So now obviously you're not going to attack with Doubleday, but we're not worried about the odds. We're just saying what the attacks are. So you can attack with Doubleday on an assault and not lose the flank's refuse marker. All right. However, if you want to use the second unit, then you're going to lose the flank refuse. You're going to lose that marker. It'll come off. Let's see what else. Right. If one guy, even a cavalry, if one guy's in there not doing anything while your other guys are doing something, you get to keep the flank refuse marker. I think that may have been all I wanted to go over with the flank refuse. So we went over the assault with it. So
The other detail about flanks, Clyde already covered the fact that if you have a unit on your side that is disorganized, if you have a common unit, a friendly unit that's next to this disorganized, it will not help to reduce the flank bonus for the attacker against you. The other stipulation is if you have a friendly unit that is, well, let's say you're the attacker and you've got a situation. Let me shift some of these units around. So let's say we have law on defense. Hold on one second. Let's say McClaws is going to attack Reynolds, and Stannard, I'm going to reduce Stannard's manpower. So if the flanking unit either, so if the Confederate is attacking and law has to be at least 25% of the manpower of the unit being attacked. So if he's less than that, then the flanking bonus from that unit is lost. So let's say Reynolds has a couple of units in there. So he's got Robinson with 6 manpower and Doubleday with 5. So that's 11. You would need law would need at least 3 to give you that flank bonus. Otherwise, you don't have the benefit of the flank attack. So keep that in mind. 25% and cannot be disorganized.
Demoralized, right?
demoralized, correct? Demoralized.
That's it.
Demoralized, sorry.
It's okay. Slip of the tongue.
Yeah, and the same thing with standard. If standard is a, let's say law has 5, so you get the original 6 hexes are covered, which is 4. Normally you would back out because you have another union unit to the side, but that's less than 25%, so the +4 does not get reduced to +3. So you have to have a friendly unit of at least 25% to avoid or to to reduce the flank benefit. Okay, any questions on that situation?
Okay.
Clyde, you want to go to the next group?
Yes. Well, let's move east to Sickles and Burning. All right. This will cause you headaches. So how about I do it this way? Let me pull Sickles out. Let's do an assault with Ewell on Burning. All right. So we see that we have the 6 hexes covered. All right. But we're going to have some backouts. Bernie cannot move into Johnson's hex. There is no ford, there is no road, and there is no bridge levee. So this is going to be a backout. So this is a +3. If we add Sickles back in, right, if we're attacking Bernie, right, we have 6 covered with 2 backouts. Okay. This was a +2. All right. So let's pull Bernie out. Yule wants to attack Sickles. All right. The same situation. Sickles does not have access across here. So that's going to be a back out. Add Bernie back in, and we're back to a +2.
Hey, Clyde, I think there might be one difference there. So if you back Sickles away, if the original attack against Bernie, so it's 6 covered hexes, so the base is a +4.
Yes, sir.
But now aren't you removing the hex that Johnson is in, and the hex 4428?
4420. No, there's a 4420. Yes. I'm sorry. Yes, 4428 and 4427.
And
Thank you.
that is because the defending unit, basically they're against the river.
They don't have access to those. So those are going to be backouts.
Right. So that's a +2.
That's a +2. Thank you. I missed this one. So adding Sickles back, it'll become a +1.
If I might interrupt for just a second, it seems counterintuitive only because you're thinking that the attacker is getting a flanking bonus, and yet you're looking at issues where the defender can't cross the river. And I guess, wouldn't you also consider it as the attacker can't cross the river there?
Well, I think, the way the calculation happens, it starts out as a +4 because every hex either has an enemy unit, or their zone of control, or there's no place to go because the river is at flanks. So you start at +4, but then think of it intuitively, then you're backing out 2 of the hex sides because they don't have to worry about the enemy
Coming from that direction.
being able to take advantage of those hex sides. So the net in this case would be +2. So you start at +4, subtract out each of the hex sides that have a river without a crossing. Does that explain it?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Let's take a look. Let's go all the way west. And look at Howard. Just as we were looking at fords, we were looking at bridges, we'll see that Howard has all 6 hexes covered. Right? But the problem is, this is a back out, this is a back out, that's a back out, and that's a back out. The flank bonus here is a +1. Any questions on this?
But I think that the North X is not covered, no?
I'm sorry, bro. Alberto, say that again, please.
This X is not covered.
Correct. It's not covered. It's not covered by Howard.
Yes. Okay. This is +1, +0.
Yes.
Because,
yes, sir.
Okay. Sorry, I don't understand.
No. This is confusing. It's like the retreat rules. What do? You get the chart and you look at the chart because no one can ever remember that. So you follow, you just follow it step by step, so clearly I can make a mistake on this, and it's something that I want to be clear with. So please ask a question. And if I get it wrong or right, we'll just keep it and move on with it.
Well, I have just one question here with Howard. Is he does cover it? He covers here, right? And
He does.
And he covers there, but it's 1, 2, 3, and 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, and 4 are basically removed. All right.
Yes. This hex is going to be removed. We're going to remove 1702. We're going to move 1633 and 1733. But you still get something, for your flank here.
Oh, you do?
Yes, it's a
For
plus
Barlow.
1
For Barlow.
because of Barlow.
Okay.
All right. If we could go ahead. If we could just move a tiny bit to the west. And to the south. We'll look at a hill.
Southeast,
Yeah, southeast.
just south of Gettysburg.
I actually went back to McLaws. We're going to look at Hill and Heth. Heth is in a bit of trouble. Hill's trying to come and help him. All right, so let's determine the flank bonus. First off, I'm going to remove Heth out of the way so we can see this hex. This is a limited zone of control, right?
So it backs out. The rule reads, it is unoccupied and is separated from all adjacent units friendly to the attacker, okay, by woods hex sides. Okay, so there's not a woods hex side between 30. I'm sorry, I'm looking at there's not a woods hex side between Hancock and 3208 or Caldwell and 3109, or so all those hexes are covered and they're not backed out. If this was, as Alberto said, if it was separated by a woods hex side here, there's a wood hex side between Hancock and Harmony Hill, so that one does back out. It's covered initially because it's in a ZOC, okay, but it's backed out because there's a woods hex side between, it's untraversed by a road.
So how about if we move them like this? So if Hancock is there, Heath is here, Caldwell is here. So Hancock would not have a ZOC into 3108. That would be blocked.
He has a ZOC, but that would be back. It would be a covered hex, but it would back out because there's a woods hex side between 3108 and 310.
Without a path road.
So that's the difference.
All right, a little bit further to the east, we're going to get into our first cavalry situation. In a nutshell, cavalry on cavalry, we're going to cut the flanks in half. So let me just go over that. How do we determine if something is a cavalry hex? That is, if the active unit is a cavalry unit, or if, say, Stuart is making an assault as a cavalry leader. So that's how we're going to know this is going to be cavalry. All right. So in the example with Stuart, we're going to have 6 hexes covered. With 6 hexes covered, that's going to be a +2. So if we move this around a bit, we'll see that we have 5 hexes covered. This will be a +1. All right. I just did the next
one other
ahead.
piece of that. So let's say that there's your previous example. So normally that one would be a +1.
Yes, sir.
So if he had a unit there, again, the infantry, that would be a +2 drop to +1. With cavalry, the +1 becomes a 0 if he's got someone on his flank. That's it.
All right. The Buford example is very much the same as the Stewart example. Let's move a little bit more to the east to talk about Gregg. All right. As I stated earlier, just a moment ago, we have to determine if this is going to be a cavalry assault or an infantry. All right, we're going to add a new rule. If more than half the total combat value in the defender's hex is cavalry, then it's cavalry. If it's not, then it's going to be an infantry. So in this situation, Greg's going to get a bonus because he's going to be treated as he's infantry.
So that means there's 5 hexes covered, and under the infantry flank rules, that's a +2.
Yes, this would be a +2. This is a +2. Any questions with the cavalry and infantry?
Did you say it's the attackers, cavalry to infantry ratio, or the defenders?
Defenders.
Okay.
If the combat value of the defending hex is more infantry, it's infantry. If it's more cavalry, it's cavalry. All right. I think that might be all the examples for flanking. Now I want to talk a little bit about a little bit more into how to help defend against some of this. Do you have anything to add real quick, Bruno?
Not on your examples. If you want to go through some of the situations you have here and how the Union would react or the defender would react if they get initiative, that might help.
Okay. With the defender getting the, let's go back up to the Longstreet example, which was the very first one. We'll just put these guys over here. So Reynolds sees a problem. So he can march in place. By marching in place, you can add a flanks refuse marker. In this example, if we were something like this, there really is nowhere for Reynolds to go, right? Marching in place would be a good way to bring down the flank by 2. All right. Another type situation is if we take, for example, same example, we bring in Buford, right? We don't really care so much about Buford, but we do care about Reynolds and their fatigues. You can bring in Buford, and on the next initiative that you get, Buford can do the flanks refuse. So you're not spending any fatigue on Reynolds. Let's see. First Corps has 4 units. As you try to maneuver them against, Pickett and Law, perhaps you don't want to have some stragglers. You want to build like these diamonds, right? Where you're limiting the amount of exposure that you have. So we can do something like this where we're going to use terrain and such to help keep the flanking down. So as you move, you're moving thinking that you're going to lose the next initiative. Let's see. What else do we got, Bruno?
Why don't we go back east to where Ewell is, Ewell and Sickles. Let's just talk about if the Rebs have just moved in and surrounded Sickles' third corps, and the next initiative goes to Sickles, so what can he do? He can either Sickles can take Humphreys and move him onto Bernie to create a stack, or he can move Bernie down, but he's still got the surrounds. Or maybe the best, I mean, he's still separating his forces, but he can activate both, and he could get Bernie out up north and move Sickles and Humphreys down south. You know, they still have issues, but all of a sudden there's no flanking on either of the divisions. So one way to try to extract, at least get away from any flank bonuses for the moment. The other alternative, although looking at the defending units, is to try to attack and disorganize, one of the divisions, which is risky. So
Yeah, but I like that. Because if you can burn out Ewell, if you can burn out Ewell, he's going to have a problem. Because he's not going to be able to reach Johnson or Early without them moving again.
Very true. Okay, how about if we go back to the units in the mountains, just add a few units so we can have a scenario here, maybe ask for input from the observers here, see what they would do. So let's move Howard back a bit. Bartow and Wadsworth. Law, Doubleday. Okay, so if you were the Reb, any ideas of how you try to get out of this predicament? Anyone can kick in if you like. Chime in. The takers?
The Rebs, right?
Yeah, we're talking about the Rebs.
In this situation, I try to go out of the mountain. If I go to, yes, because Anderson have this road, it's open, but the situation is very complicated. The problem is that if the Union close the road to Anderson, it's very dangerous and very difficult to go out.
So I think I tried to move Law here and also try to get Anderson along the same path, because here's your extrication is going down this road. Now, when you're in the mountains, there's not too many paths of retreat. You want to try to keep, if possible, depending on the situation, at least 2 hexes between your 2 units. If they were like that and then Howard attacks, as long as it's not a rout, Law can retreat to, but still not take any retreat losses because he still has enough hexes. So, just to keep that in mind, try to keep 2 hexes for retreat purposes. But again, that was a good anticipation about trying to hold off Howard, and if at the very least Anderson being the largest unit, to try to extricate him, and he could make it down south. See the thinking on that?
You're in a tough spot. I do like the southern extrication, holding Howard in check, because Howard's not going to be able to command. All 3 units are out of command range, so he's not going to be able to swarm you.
I have a thought, Mark Booth here. That's great if you get the second initiative. If you don't, then Wadsworth can just move 3 hexes due south. He's not encumbered by Law's.
No, I agree. It's a mess.
Yeah, it's a tough extrication.
I have a question.
Yeah, thanks for that.
How do players play hex side 2001, 2002? That's a clear road move. Okay. From 19, it keeps moving.
I'm trying to. Are you on Are you on
where's-
Vassal? Or are you in the Discord?
I'm on the Discord. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's probably why you can't see the hexes as much. Tell me where you want me to go, and I'll go there.
Okay, Clyde. We discussed the southern retreat route. I saw
Yes,
the
sir.
road. The road is clear, but hex what is that? 1930. Yes, that one. Number
1934.
down one.
Yep,
Number
1902.
down one. Okay, now how do players play the two hexes? The two mountain hexes, 1903 and 2002, from hex 1902.
19.
You cannot enter those hexes. You'd have to enter from that hex. Actually, doesn't have a number. The 2001 would be the only way to enter those hexes.
Yes.
That's the way I've always played it. Thank you for
Because-
telling me I'm not
yeah,
pedantic.
Yeah, because this
No, you
this
got
is
it right.
yeah, this is death right here. But this
Yes,
he can.
that's where no good boys go.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anyone else?
Any questions from the audience?
Then I guess we can call this done. Bruno, I can't thank you enough. I guess that'll do us. I'm so grateful that you stopped by.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Bye
much.
bye. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Clyde.
gentlemen.
Thank you, gentlemen.